Welcome to the Stratford Shakespeare Festival. We're here in the lobby of the Festival Theatre tonight, and I'm Antoni Cimolino, and tonight we are with two fantastic people to speak to. We're here with our Artistic Director, Des McAnuff. Hi, Des.
Hi, Antoni.
And we're here with Colm Feore, who is Cyrano and also the Scottish King. Colm, thanks for doing this.
Good evening.
You guys have had a long day. You were in Scotland all day?
I was both. You were Scotland. I was a bit of both.
France, Scotland,
Paris, Scotland, France. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but no, ça va.
Well, Des is directing the Scottish play, and this is the third time you've done this play. What drew you to it? Why would a person do a play for the third time? You've done it once before at the festival itself.
Right. It is a very dark journey. It is really a nightmare. And I must say, every time, including this one, the times I've tackled the play, it does affect one's dreams. So it is a disturbing journey. But I also think it's just an astonishing, kind of view of the dark side of humanity, and I think you have to study these things in order to understand people in your times. The first time I did this play, I was very interested in, having gone through the Kennedy assassination, on what happens when the murderers are themselves murdered. I was very interested in that theme, and anyone who remembers the 1960s, lived through that, where a whole country, at the time it seemed like the whole world had entered into this land of nightmare. The second time I did it, it was right at the time my wife at the time and I were getting pregnant, and I was much more interested in the childless couple. You could argue that the play is sandwiched between, it's a domestic tragedy sandwiched between these two, huge battle sequences, these two huge wars, and but I was very much more interested in the personal journey. This time, the main thing that interested me is that I have a magnificent Macbeth. And
we're still waiting to see
if
that's true, but yeah.
And so I think when you and certainly with Yana McIntosh, also an extraordinary Lady Macbeth, and I see tremendous potential in this production because of their talents. You don't do Hamlet. You don't decide to do Hamlet and then go out and troll for Hamlet. These parts require extraordinary skill sets and talents, and so it was really, Colm and I really cooked this up together, and so that's why I'm kind of back at home plate with Macbeth.
Great. Well, and this leads us to Colm. You could have played this part, I'm sure, many times over the years, and you haven't. You've chosen not to. And now with Des, you've said yes. What led to that decision?
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, Des has a lot of experience with the play and a lot of very interesting things to say about the play, which I thought would help me through it, because I do think you need somebody to guide you. I'm an actor who desperately needs direction, and so I put my trust in people who are going to take me on a journey, even if it's not going to be a very pleasant one. And I expect this one not to be pleasant. Fun to do, but horrible to actually experience. I also believe, and this is just me, but I think this is such an extraordinarily dense play. The language is so precise and condensed and exact. Shakespeare at his most fluid and cutting everything unnecessary out of it, that to a certain degree, you have to have played everything else before you get to this, because what you know about Hamlet is all in Macbeth, but he cut it. What you know about Coriolanus is all in Macbeth, but not necessary. So we skip over those scenes. But for an actor, it's terribly useful to have played all these other things and then say, this is the distillation. This is the thing itself, stripped as bare and as raw as it can be. And so, up till now, I simply didn't have anything to say. I was busy building the foundation whereon I might start to think about doing my, and I say this without anticipation of being asked again, but my first Macbeth.
So, on your first Macbeth, on your third Macbeth, when you come to a play like this and you're trying to understand what you're going to do with it, where you're going to set it, how you tell the story, how do you go about that? Like, what's that process for you, Des?
You know, I think it's there's no recipe. First of all, I've got to say for creating a production concept. No, the theater's a collaborative art form, and it requires many meetings with many people before you really find your way. And so there's no kind of magic way to come up with a production concept. I think, though, that with Shakespeare himself used different periods and certainly, found parallels in his own times with history. And Macbeth is, in fact, a history. It's based on a story that actually happened, or certainly much of it actually happened in the 11th century. And so he's constantly looking for parallels in history, and I think through that creates a certain kind of universality. I'm selfishly, as I often say, interested in my own life and times.
Right.
And so I'm always looking to these plays to serve as tools and frankly as floodlights to enlighten me about what I'm actually going through and what I see the world going through. And sadly enough, as with many of the tragedies, this play is perhaps more pertinent today with what's going on in the world in terms of despotism and dictatorship and slaughter and violence and revolution. This is a play that takes place on a very violent landscape, and even though it's easy for us often to ignore the world we live in, we're blessed, I think, to live in a free society. There are many places on the planet that don't have that luxury. So, I think the mistake you can make with parallels is, it's going to be a palette knife comparison. And this was true for Shakespeare as well. You're going to get a kind of composite reflection or refraction of another time. You're never going to be able to hold up a pristine mirror, to history. But I think it's important that the plays feel pertinent, right, and that that we want blood flowing through the veins of the plays. That's what we do. So we have to bring our own experience to them.
It's useful for actors too, because if you have to fight your way through what might be a fabulous design and costume, and you can feel that it's an effort for you to embody it. Imagine how hard it is for the audience then to decipher it. And certainly with what we've chosen this time, and you keep in mind Shakespeare's contemporary, we're doing Julius Caesar, they're wearing tights, pumpkin pants, and a couple of sheets.
Yeah, that's right.
Heareth lieth my toga.
And maybe a Roman sword.
Yeah, and wooden. And so,
right,
we're doing something, I think, with Macbeth that is really fluid. We found just everybody walking in their street clothes, although that's not what we're wearing. They're fabulous, beautifully designed costumes, but there was no transition. I noticed with the actors, there's a military element to it, so some people are going to have to behave in a military way. And our costumes will all support that, support the actor, and hopefully support the intimacy of our relationship, certainly in the Stratford Festival stage, which is that close.
Right.
And so I really like the kind of organic fluidity about it, and it's still Scotland, it's still Norway, it's still an ancient story, but timeless in that sense.
Now we got some questions from viewers, and Colm, we kind of asked you about the timing of this. Colm, there's a question here about how you prepare for a role. What do you read? What do you do? What's the process of getting ready to play the Scottish King?
Well, I think for me it's fairly straightforward. It's what I've been doing, and it has evolved while happily working with Stratford a long time, and a lot of great people helping me, saying you should probably have an OED and some concordances and some thoughts on Shakespeare. Get Harley Granville Barker, get a few of these, and make sure you've got a first folio. And then I read every edition I can find and cross-reference that, and spend a lot of time puzzling it out and trying to be really familiar with it and yet at the same time able to give all that up, given what Des and I discussed in the room and that the other actors bring. And so to be very familiar and yet very fluid and open with it and very available to change, rather than working it out in the bathroom. God, it'd be great when I do it this way, but
Right.
you don't like that.